Preparation is the key to a successful divorce mediation. This video will give you a complete checklist of everything you will need to be prepared when you begin. Hi, my name is Lee Schwartz. I am an attorney and a mediator, Peaceful Separation and Divorce. If you're unsure how to navigate the process, check out my other videos in my Divorce Mediation playlist. How do you prepare for divorce mediation? Well, the first thing is to be sure that both parties, you and your spouse or you and your partner, wish to do mediation and that you both are willing to get involved in the process. Once that is done, you're going to want to select a mediator. Few mediators are trained properly to be a mediator, surprisingly. Many lawyers hold themselves out as mediators, but they've never been trained. So the most important thing is when you're calling around or you're checking out people's qualifications, you want to be sure they've been properly trained. Here's my divorce mediation checklist for the first session or two. I'm going to send you a list much more comprehensive than this, but remember, a divorce is a process where we're going to divide assets. So parties are going to want to get together bank statements, brokerage statements, retirement statements. You're going to want to have some sort of an idea of what your home or homes are worth, vehicles in the family, whatever assets that the parties have, we're going to need values and we're going to need present values. Also, we're going to need liabilities. So if you've got credit cards that aren't paid off in full every month, we're going to need those statements, mortgage statements, loans that you've taken out that are not covered by a mortgage necessarily. So again, it's all assets and all liabilities. And I'll help you put that together. Certainly, we're going to want to be sure we have your full names, your addresses, social security numbers can be helpful. Again, this is a process, and I don't want you to feel like you got to have everything before the first session. We will develop what we need as we talk and as we meet. With regard to insurance, we're concerned in divorce with insurance policies that have a cash value. So some sort of a variable life or a whole life policy, you're going to want to provide current values for the cash portion of that policy also. Health insurance is also important because once you are divorced, the party providing health insurance for the family, if that's the case, can no longer provide health insurance for the other spouse. So that is another process that we will deal with during the mediation process that you'll go through. If you've got a prenuptial agreement you and your spouse signed, that is very important. And we will need that because that may guide us in how we divide assets, or what assets are marital or what assets are not marital. I don't necessarily need to see wills and trusts or powers of attorney. Certainly a will is something you're going to want to change and remove your spouse's name from in most cases, and we can discuss that, but generally I don't need to see those. You're going to want to consider changing your passwords to your social media accounts, to your Gmail or whatever email system you use, because if your spouse is aware of those passwords and usernames, they can get into your accounts, and that may or may not be to your advantage. An interesting part of a divorce, and occasionally we get into situations where parties are sharing custody, not in the same way as children, but are sharing possession of their pet, or they're dividing their pet. So if pets are important to you and your spouse, we're going to want to discuss and come to agreement with regard to the future of the pets, who has access to the pets, who cares for the pets, and perhaps who pays for their care. Here are my tips for successful mediation. And I think the most important advice I can give you is that you're not going to leave this process with the agreement that you think you're going to get when you begin the process. Because this is a process in mediation of parties stating their needs, stating their goals, and the process is not only about what you need in order to be successful post-divorce, but what your spouse needs. And in a successful mediation, both parties have to take into account not only their needs, but the needs of their spouse. With regard to parties' emotions during the process, listen, we're human beings. People are going to get upset. There may be tears, but respect is all part of the mediation process. And trying not to berate, judge, or lose your composure with your spouse makes for a more ideal mediation process. There are cases where a party who might have difficulty communicating with a spouse might agree to include a neutral mental health person in the process to try and help party manage their emotions during a mediation.